Okay, so we're going to begin with environmental issues today. So I'm going to start, as usual, with definitions. What is the environment? Can somebody give me a definition? Or is it too early? Well, we're going to define the environment as everything around us, both living and non-living. Our environment is everything around us, both living and non-living. So of course, we're mostly concerned with living things and how they interact with each other and how they live and grow and thrive in a particular environment. So the environment is everything around you, both living and non-living. When we're studying the environment, we're going to study what's called an ecosystem. An ecosystem. The environment itself is too broad, general, and vague. So to study the environment, we are going to divide it into different ecosystems. So an ecosystem is a portion of the environment for study. In fact, it's a particular environment. It is a portion of the environment for study. Ecosystem. An ecosystem has two components. When we're studying a portion of the environment, we're studying an ecosystem. Ecosystem has two components. The community is the first component. The community is all of the living organisms that live together in one place. Community refers to the living part of the environment. All of the organisms living together in one place is called a community. This includes, well, the first thing we think of would be, when you think of an environment, what's the first thing you think of for living things? Yes. Animals, yes. Animals, what else? Plants, right? Plants, animals, fungus, microorganisms, all living things. Includes animals, plants, fungus, microorganisms such as bacteria, and even some fungus is microorganic. So community is all the organisms living together in one place, not just the plants and the animals. We also have other living components. Then the second part of the environment is the habitat. This is the non-living part. This is the area or region where an organism lives, grows, and thrives. Habitat is the non-living part of the environment. It is the area or region where the organism lives, grows, and thrives. So an ecosystem is a portion of the environment, rather than just saying the environment, which is broad and general. We'll deal with an ecosystem, which is a portion of the environment for study. That includes a community, the living part, and the habitat. Together, the relationship between those two components is called a niche. Niche. Niche is an organism's place in its community and habitat. Okay, we're talking about the environment, we're talking about an ecosystem. We're going to have living things living together, interacting together with the non-living environment. It's called a niche. An organism's place in its community and habitat. So when we're talking about an ecosystem, we're being specific to a particular region or area, and we are talking about all of the living things in that region plus the region itself, community and habitat. And you've probably heard the term niche. Niche is where we put the two together. A niche is an organism's place. It's its place in its community and habitat. So that's an ecosystem. The next definition is ecology. Ecology. Ecology is a proper discipline of biology. Just because it's been overtaken by evolution and environmentalism doesn't mean that it's not something that should be studied. It is something that should be studied. However, its very name and background is very evolutionary and so forth. But ecology is part of biology. Ecology is defined as the study of relationships, and interactions. So ecology is a proper discipline, a proper study in biology, but of course nowadays ecology has a whole nother connotation. It has the connotation of environmentalism. So ecology is the study of the relationships and interactions of living organisms with each other and their environment. Ecology, primarily a study of relationships and interactions of living organisms with each other and their environment. Ecology has two root words that make it up from the Greek. So ecology is the study of the relationships and interactions of living organisms with each other and their environment. Root word. Oikos. Okay, when I write that on the board, what do you think? Greek yogurt, right? This is Greek, and it refers to the house. In particular, the house in which one lives. Why that Dannon Greek yogurt is named that, I do not know. But oikos, I think would be a close pronunciation. Oikos is Greek for the house in which one lives. It's like saying your house, not just a house. The house in which one lives. And then of course, ology, its root word is logos, which we know means word, but it also has the connotation of description. And we use it, ology, we change it into the study of. So oikos, logos, is where we get the word ecology. So it literally means the description of the house in which you live, which kind of makes sense. Like I said, I still don't get the connection to the Greek yogurt. So two Greek words, oikos and logos. Oikos, the house in which one lives. Logos, the connotation that we're using here is description of, study of. So ecology is literally the description of the house in which we live. That's the terminology for ecology. This term, ecology, was first used by Ernest Haeckel. Ernest Haeckel. In 1866, Ernest Haeckel, 1866, used the first to use the term, came up with the term, coined the term ecology. Ernest Haeckel is a famous and very adamant evolutionist. He was the evolutionist that came up with the idea that the human fetus during development recapitulates all the stages of evolution. If you've ever seen that, you know how when the baby first starts and then it looks like it has a tail, which is just the spinal cord forming. And he even altered his drawings to make it look like as the baby is developing, it recapitulates is the term. It goes through all the stages of evolution, which of course is ridiculous. Okay? And has certainly been disproven, but is still kind of hanging around a little bit. Ernest Haeckel. So ecology, yes, it is important to study the environment, and there are relationships in ecosystems, but ecology itself it's historically based in evolution. So ecology today, two problems with ecology. And ecology also, it's been taken over by environmentalism, and taken over by pantheism. Remember pantheism as one of our three major categories of worldviews? All right, New Age, that type of Eastern type religious views are very much a part of ecology and environmentalists. Many environmentalists are pantheistic. So, two problems with ecology today. First, as mentioned, is it's rooted in evolution. Evolution shapes, and it shaped in the past and continues to shape ecology today. Everything about ecology is viewed through an evolutionary worldview and then even a pantheistic worldview where the environment is personified and even deified. So, ecology today first is rooted in evolution. Of course, historically coined by a very prominent, very adamant evolutionist, Ernest Haeckel, and even by association. Everything about ecology and then environmentalism deals in evolution, how evolution has shaped the environment. So that's why the study of ecology is difficult for a Christian, because you have to wade through all the muck of evolution and all the muck, literally, of environmentalism. Okay? Though I think studying the environment should be studied in biology classes, and we should understand the environment. But today, ecology is not what it's supposed to be. It's not just studying the environment and learning how animals and organisms interact with each other and learning how different things affect the environment. That's not what's happening. It is rooted in evolution, both historically and in reality. The driving force shaping the environment is evolution. We have all this coevolution going on. We have how natural selection affects the environment. What is that? It's evolution. So it's very difficult to study ecology without all of the evolution. The second problem with ecology, it's rooted in evolution, and the emphasis is now on environmentalism. So it's evolution, it's completely rooted in evolution, and it is dominated. Its emphasis is entirely on what we'll call environmentalism. So the environment, ecology, all of those things are difficult to study. A lot of the ecology organizations are very pantheistic. Okay, so we have to have a proper view of the environment. So the next thing I want to talk about is, what should our view of the environment be? What is a biblical view of the environment? Should we just completely go the other side of the issue and we don't care about the environment, we're going to pollute, we're going to abuse, that's not Christian either. So we want to have a proper view of the environment. What is a proper view of the environment? First thing I want to do now is review worldview, because your worldview will determine your view of the environment. So if we're going to talk about what is the proper view of the environment, we need to set the foundation again. So everything that we talked about last section with respect to human life, we are now going to apply to the environment. What is a proper view of the environment? It depends on your worldview. So as a review, I'm going to start back over with worldview and the three main categories. This will be in this section as well because it's important foundationally. Remember worldview. What is a worldview? It is the core belief that underlies the principles that govern your life. And it determines the rest of your beliefs and opinions. So a good synonym for worldview would be core belief. Your worldview is your core belief. It's the principle that underlines everything you believe. It is a core belief. It is the principles that govern one's life, the principle that underlies the rest of your beliefs and opinions. So when you think of worldview, think of core belief. It's your foundational belief. It's what determines the rest of your beliefs. It's what you base your life on. It is a worldview. So worldview, what did we say about the worldview last time? We said that worldview is a core belief. Underneath this, remember that a worldview is the framework of ideas and beliefs through which an individual interprets the world and interacts with it. It is a framework of ideas and beliefs through which an individual, that's why I call it a worldview, because it's through which an individual interprets the world and interacts with it. It's the belief that sums up your basic conclusions about life and its meaning. It is your core belief, the belief that sums up your basic conclusions about life and its meaning. What is life all about? What is the meaning of life? And as we talk about those three main worldviews, how do we view reality? What's real and what's not real? Okay, that is a worldview. It is the framework of ideas and beliefs through which an individual interprets the world and interacts with it. It is the belief that sums up one's basic conclusions about life and its meaning. It's very foundational. It's a core belief. It can also be defined as an individual's way of thinking about truth and reality. An individual's way of thinking about truth and reality. As we go through those three worldviews, we're going to point out, okay, we have our theistic worldview, we have our naturalistic worldview, and we have our pantheistic worldview. How does each of those worldviews, how do they approach, how do they look at truth? What is truth? If you're a pantheist, what is truth? If you're a pantheist, what is reality? If you're a theist, what is truth? What is reality? If you're a naturalist, which is very much the same as an atheist, what is truth in your mind? What is real? What is not real? It's a worldview. It's a core belief. It sums up your basic conclusions about life and its meaning. And the whole reason why we have environmentalism and ecology is because of an atheistic or even a pantheistic worldview. So worldview, make sure you know its definition. It is the core belief that underlies the principles that govern one's life, and it determines the rest of your beliefs and opinions. We can also say it's a framework of ideas and beliefs through which the world you interpret. An individual interprets the world and interacts with it. It is a worldview. It is also an individual's way of thinking about truth and reality. The last thing about worldview is that it can also apply to a society. We can also apply a worldview to the United States. What is the dominant worldview in the United States? So worldview can also be the fundamental orientation of a society. We can apply the idea of a worldview to a society. Which worldview is held by the most people in that society? Which worldview dominates that society? In the United States, what is the dominant worldview right now? It's naturalistic. But we also are having more and more influence of the pantheistic. We have the New Age movement. We have the vegetarians. We have the animal rights and all those things which are pantheistic. So we're getting a mix of the two, but I really think that most Americans are still very naturalistic. And most of our universities are directing people into atheism, right? And socialism, and even environmentalism. It kind of depends on which way when you go to the university as a young person and you don't have your worldview in your own mind and solidified in your life, you're going to go one way or the other. If you go to a secular university, they're going to be pushing you mostly to the naturalistic worldview, but then you might get in kind of the fringe of the university and then you'll be pushed into the New Age pantheistic worldview. Okay, so a worldview can also apply to a society. It can be the fundamental orientation of a society. In the United States, I think the worldview is more dominant. The worldview that is dominant is naturalistic. Why? We've said it over and over again in this class. Decades of rejecting God and the Bible and what? Embracing evolution. So when you embrace evolution, which worldview is the most evolutionary? The naturalistic one. Evolution is a naturalistic philosophy. There is no God. There is no such thing as supernatural, so there can't be creation. Does that make sense? So that's why I think that the naturalistic worldview is the most dominant. So we can apply worldview to an entire society. It's the fundamental orientation of society. So do you understand what worldview is and how important it is and where it comes from? If you remember last time, I gave you 3 results of a worldview. First of all, we said everyone has a worldview. You can't be neutral. You have core beliefs. You can say, well, I'm going to embrace everything and I'm going to tolerate everything. That just doesn't happen. Everyone has a worldview, whether they admit it or not. Everyone has core beliefs that a worldview is how you view truth and reality. You say, well, I'm going to say there's no truth. Well, then what are you? A naturalistic person. Okay? So everyone has a worldview. The second thing, worldview rests on what you believe is the ultimate truth. Your worldview, you have one, and it rests on what you believe is the ultimate truth. Okay, so each one of those 3 worldviews, theistic, naturalistic, and pantheistic. What's the ultimate truth for all 3? Let's begin with theism. If you have a theistic worldview, what's the ultimate truth? Theistic? Yes. There is a God. Okay, one God. Sometimes it's called monotheism. There is one God. That's the ultimate truth, is the existence of God. Now remember, a biblical worldview is a type of theistic worldview. So if we have a biblical worldview, we believe, of course, in the God of the Bible, and that the Bible is the key to understanding the world around us. So each of our worldview categories has an ultimate truth. So if you have a theistic worldview, what is the ultimate truth? The existence of God. All right, if you have a naturalistic worldview, what's the ultimate truth? There is no God. So naturalism denies supernatural. Therefore, it denies God. Make sense? So every person has a worldview, whether they admit it or not. And that worldview determines how they view truth and reality. And that's going to affect how you live your life. It affects your opinions and your beliefs. It's going to determine a lot of the direction of your life. That's why it's important. So everyone has a worldview, and your worldview rests on what you believe is the ultimate truth. Theism, the ultimate truth is the existence of God, one God, often called monotheism. Naturalism denies the existence of God. denies the supernatural. There is no God. Pantheism. What is the ultimate truth with that? Everything is God. Nature is God. Do you see where we're going with this when we're talking about environmentalism? Okay? So, everyone has a worldview. Then the worldview, your worldview, rests on what you believe is the ultimate truth. And the third point, the third result, worldviews are foundational. They're important. They will direct how you live your life is a direct result of this core belief. It's going to affect your life. It's going to determine what you do and don't do. It's going to determine what you think is right and wrong. Okay? It's ultimate truth. It's foundational. It's very important. It's foundational to your life. How you live your life is a direct result of your worldview. Your worldview is your core belief of how you live your life. So it's very important. All right, so as we review here, remember we have our three basic categories of worldview. I'm going to review this, and it is also a part of this section. It's not part of just bioethics. Okay? First worldview, theism. Okay? Theism. The ultimate truth for theism is one God exists who is outside of space and time. He's separate from his creation. He's outside of space and time. If you remember, this also is biblical. What does Genesis 1:1 say? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God established time, space, and created all matter. So he is separate from his creation. So that's the first part of theism. The ultimate truth for theism is the existence of God. One God exists who is outside of space and time. He is separate from his creation. We also said that God is a spirit that brought the universe into existence and enables it to operate in accordance with natural law. You see how this is going to affect your view of the environment? If you view the environment as created by God, it's going to be different than if you view the environment as being shaped by evolution. It will affect that. We also said for theism that God reveals himself to man primarily through his word. Now, of course, we have other religions associated with theism, but primarily as a Christian, we view his word as the Bible. Other theistic religions will, if it's Judaism, Judaism centers itself on the Torah, the law. And if it's Islam, which is a theistic religion, would be the Quran. At any rate, if you have a theistic worldview, you do have a Bible of sorts. So God reveals himself to man primarily through his word, but also through nature. So if we're studying the environment, we're studying nature, and we have a theistic worldview, we're going to be looking for God's hand in nature. We are going to see how nature was designed by God and how God put all these things into motion. Another point with theism, we said that God has authority over all of his creation. That includes mankind. If we apply it to the environment, which we will in a minute, that means that God controls the environment. Remember, what is the proper view of God? God is the sovereign creator. Why do we emphasize the word sovereign? That has the idea of God's authority and God's control. So God created and controls the environment. All right, so God has authority over all of his creation. Then we said man is God's special creation. Man is not just a part of the environment like the animals are, is he? So a lot of what we're going to talk about in this section on environmentalism is we have to have a proper view of God, yes, and that translates into a proper view of man, and that translates into a proper view of the environment. If you don't have a proper view of man, you're going to overemphasize the environment, okay? And you're going to jeopardize human life at the expense of saving the environment. What is that? That's unethical because it's out of balance with our core belief, okay? That's why I think we talked about this in the pathology section. What is the leading cause of death worldwide? Leading cause of death worldwide, including all diseases, including accidental death, including homicide and genocide, including everything. Leading cause of death in the world, not the United States, in the world is malaria. More people die of malaria than anything else worldwide, okay? Why am I talking about malaria with respect to environmentalism? Because World Health Organizations have determined that certain insecticides that would eliminate the Anopheles mosquito populations are unsafe for the environment, so they've been banned. So we'll just let people die of malaria. There is a balance with that, but we have swung to the wrong side, and that's because we don't have a proper view of man. Human life should not be spent or should not be sacrificed because of the environment. All right, that's not a very popular view, okay? So, God has authority over all of his creation, and man is God's special creation. So he's above the environment. He's not merely a part of the environment. You see where this is going to play a role. All right, we can't possibly talk about all the environmental issues and all the environmental scares and all the politics of environmentalism, can we? So we have to have a proper view so then in the future you can make your own judgments with respect to environmental issues. Same thing with bioethics. We can't possibly cover everything that's going to come up with bioethics. So you have to have a foundation so that you can make your own judgments with respect to medicine and human life, and now with respect to the environment. So you understand why I'm spending time here again, is to set the foundation so that you have a proper view of the environment. So we said man is God's special creation. That means he is above the environment. He's above the animal kingdom. He's not just part of the environment like anything else. Then truth is absolute, and it's based on God's word. Truth is absolute, and it's based on God's word. So then that means morality is based on God's word. And morality, if we say that we have absolute truth, then we can have absolute morality based on God's word. Then the last thing, reality. Reality is both material and spiritual. We talked about dualism. So that means that spiritual things, our spiritual nature is real, but so is the material world around us. God created it. It's real. So reality is both material and spiritual, dualism. Truth is absolute. Morality is also absolute and based on God's word. Associated religions. What are some associated beliefs or religions with this worldview? We've mentioned it before. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Okay? We could also add biblical Christianity, because Christianity, in the sense I just used it, is not referring to biblical Christianity. Naturalism. What is the ultimate truth for naturalism? There is no God, no supernatural. Then we said that the universe has always existed in some form. and is the product of physical processes, was not created. Matter, or the universe, always existed in some form and is the product of physical processes. That's naturalism. No supernatural invention, no creation. So the ultimate truth is that there is no God. And then, rather than God being eternal, matter, or the universe, always existed in some form and is the product of physical processes. Another thing, everything can be explained in terms of natural laws. Hence the name naturalism. Everything can be explained in terms of natural laws. What about man? Man is the chance product of evolution and his environment. It's not your fault. You're the product of your environment. And I guess ultimately your evolution. Okay? So man is the chance product of evolution and his environment. That's in contrast to a theistic worldview, where we say that man is God's special creation. Okay? And where I'm going with this, you might want to write it in the margin of your notes, is you're going to have a major essay on theism versus naturalism versus pantheism, because it kind of ties the class together. How does each of these worldviews view God? How does each of these worldviews view man? How does each worldview view the environment? Okay, so naturalism, there is no God. Matter is eternal. The universe has always existed in some form and is the product of purely physical processes, no supernatural. Everything can be explained in terms of natural laws. This is where we get the prominence of science, right? Science. Then man is a chance product of evolution and his environment. Reality, or truth. Truth is understood as scientific proof. So there can be no absolutes. Truth is understood as being based in science. It's scientific proof. So there can be no absolutes. Tomorrow, science may tell us something different. You see the difference between the worldviews? Tomorrow, science may change what we believe is true. Well, that's kind of true. Science does change. That's why it can't be the ultimate truth. It can't be the basis of our life. Science is done by scientists. There's a brilliant statement, right? Science is done by scientists. What are scientists? They're human beings. They're prejudiced, right? They have a worldview. They have an agenda. You say, oh, no, they don't. Oh, yes, they do. Everybody has an agenda. Everybody has prejudice. And they make mistakes. So do you want to base your ultimate truth on science? No. Think about science track record, going all the way back to the flat earth, going back not as far back as the medical science did all kinds of things that were wrong. Okay? They didn't understand germs and microorganisms for a long time. And they were actually spreading disease. The worst place for you to go would have been the hospital. Okay? They also were draining people's blood when they were sick. When the Bible plainly told us what? The life of the flesh is where? In the blood. So do you want to base your life on science? So the ultimate truth is understood as science, scientific proof. There can be no absolutes. What about morality? Morality is relative. And it's decided by the majority. It's decided by consensus. It's decided ultimately by man. Then the last one, reality is only material. Remember, the theistic worldview says spiritual realm, spiritual things are real, and material things are real. In naturalism, we're going to deny the spiritual, and we're going to say that reality is only material. That's why materialism is kind of another name for naturalism, materialism. Okay, associated religions or beliefs. Other beliefs more specific that fit this worldview would be atheism, agnosticism, secular humanism, materialism, existentialism, same as last time, associated beliefs or religions. Last is pantheism. Let's go through pantheism again and try to keep it parallel. Pantheism, what is the ultimate truth? Everything is God. And often, this is lowercase g, everything is God, and this is usually described as some type of force or energy or essence or consciousness. They don't always refer to it as a God, but that's what it is. So everything is God, usually described as some type of force, some type of life force or energy or essence or consciousness or being. All right, next we said that there is a unity of all living things. There's a unity in nature. All is God, all is one, all is well, to quote famous pantheistic saying. All is God, all is one, all is well. So there's this, spiritual unity of all things, all living things. All is God, all is one, all is well. Okay, so the ultimate truth is that everything is God and everything is unified, and then everything is spiritual. All else is an illusion. Only the spiritual really exists. Only the spiritual dimension. All else is an illusion. Of course, pantheistic religions take this point to different extents. All right, so then what about how does it view man? Man is one with God. Man is a spirit. We would agree with that, but that's only partially true. Man is a spirit, and we all share the same essence. We all have the same life force. That's the unity idea again. Man is one with God. He is a spirit, and we all are unified. We share the same essence or the same spirit or the same life force. Morality is also relative, though its ultimate goal is to become one with everything. See how this is going to affect your view of the environment? One with nature. We joke about tree huggers. They're pantheistic. They're trying to become one with nature. So morality is relative. It really has no meaning. It's not relative in the sense of naturalism where it's decided by the group. It's relative in that it really has no meaning. Whatever you do is fine because you're God unto yourself. So morality has no meaning. It's probably a better way to express it than relative. Morality has no meaning. And our whole goal is to become one with the universe or one with nature. Reality is only spiritual. The real, I was going to say the real world, because in my mind it is the real world, but the material world is unreal. It's an illusion or even a dream. If you've ever read any pantheistic gurus, we'll use it that word, they have all kinds of bizarre ideas, one of which is that the material world doesn't really exist. It's unreal. It's an illusion or even a dream. Okay? So then, truth. If I'm theistic, truth is absolute and it's based in God's word, right? If I'm naturalistic, what is truth? It's based in science. It's understood through scientific proof, so it really can't be absolute. If I'm a pantheist, truth is experience, oneness with the universe. It's beyond rational description. I guess there is no truth. Truth is to experience oneness with the universe. Associated beliefs and religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, mysticism, Christian Science, New Age. Hinduism, Buddhism, mysticism, Christian Science, and New Age. So we've got theism, naturalism, pantheism. What does each of those believe is the ultimate truth? How do they view God? How do they view man? And then how will they view the environment, which I'm going to actually start explaining that in more detail because that is the new part. So we are talking about how should we view the environment? And the first and most major point here is that your world view, which is your core beliefs, will determine your view of the environment. We have our three main categories of worldview. So let's add the fourth. What is the fourth worldview that we talked about in detail that is it's not one of the three main, it is its own worldview that I hope you have. The fourth worldview is what? A biblical. So what is a biblical worldview? This is also from last section on bioethics. What is a biblical worldview? A biblical worldview is the view that, or is the belief that the God of the Bible is the one true God. And he reveals himself through the Bible. And the Bible is the key to understanding the world around us. That is especially important. Remember, we're talking about a biblical worldview. It is a type of theism. It does recognize the existence of one God, but we have to be specific. If it's a biblical worldview, it's based in the existence of the God of the Bible. And God reveals himself through the Bible, and key to this is the Bible. The Bible is key to understanding the world around us. Remember, we said that a core belief, a worldview, sums up one's basic conclusions about life and its meaning. So how do we know what life is, and how do we know the meaning of life? Where do we get it? From the Bible. So do you understand what I mean when I ask you, what is a biblical worldview? It's more specific than a theistic worldview, though it would fit in that category. The whole key there is the Bible. The Bible is the key to understanding the world around us. So we need to have a biblical view of God, a biblical view of man, and then a biblical view of the environment. Then if we have the proper core beliefs, we can make proper judgments, have proper opinions, right? And interact with the world properly as far as God is concerned. And as a Christian, that should be your goal, to please God and to live as a Christian would live, to follow the Bible, okay? So, biblical view of God. What is the biblical view of God? He is our sovereign creator. How many times have I asked you that? What is a biblical view of God? God, in particular, the God of the Bible, is the sovereign creator. What's a biblical view of man? Man is God's special creation. Now the new one. What is a biblical view of the environment. Okay, so our view of the environment will hinge on our view of God and our view of man. So remember, proper view of God or a biblical view of God. You'll notice that I will use proper worldview and biblical worldview in the same sense, because the biblical worldview is the proper worldview. After all, we are at Bible college. Okay? So, our proper view of God is that He is the sovereign creator. All right, so how does that affect our view of the environment? He created it, He controls it, and He determines our place in it, right? So, a proper view of the environment begins with a proper view of God, a biblical view of God. God is the sovereign creator. What does that mean with respect to the environment? Let's apply the proper view of God to the environment. If we have a proper view of God, we will have a proper view of the environment. 3 things. God created the environment, right? He controls the environment. All right, are we concerned about global warming? And we're going to flood all the coastal regions. Florida's going to be underwater, if you believe Al Gore. That's kind of died down, I realize. Are we concerned with that? No. The world's going to end. How, when, where? No, maybe not where. But how, when, where? God determines it. So, yes, we're going to be responsible with the environment because we have stewardship. But we're not worried about some type of global catastrophe. Well, that's coming anyways. We know it's coming. Right? Well, you know, the Bible does say God's going to destroy it with what? Fire? Not water. So I'm not worried about global flooding. Okay? Anyways. So, proper view of God is He's the sovereign creator. Let's apply that to the environment. He created the environment. He controls the environment. He's sovereign, right? And He determines our place in it. Don't forget the 5 attributes of God. God is eternal, right? God is our sustainer. God is our owner. God is our judge. I'm not going to go through those again, but you need to go back over that. They are on the quiz. They are on the final. Okay? Then, our proper view of the environment hinges on our view of God, and it's directly related to our view of man. What is our view of man? What is a proper view of man? Man is God's special creation. Correct? All right? So, how does that affect the environment? Let's apply that to the environment. First of all, man is unique. He is not merely a part of the community. He's not just with the same level. He's not at the same level as animals. Certainly not plants. Okay? So, our proper view of the environment is determined by our worldview. That's our first point. And our proper view of the environment hinges on having that biblical worldview. It hinges on our belief of God. It's directly related to our view of man. Man is God's special creation. That means, first of all, he is unique. He is not the same as the rest of the living organisms. He's not just a living organism in the community, in our ecosystem, is he? He is unique. He's not merely part of the environment. Next, man was given special place in the environment. Remember what we say about God? God created the environment, God controls the environment, and God determines our place in it. So that's where man fits in. First thing, man is unique. He's not just a part of the environment. He's not just part of the community. He's not just a living organism like the animals. Secondly, man has a special place in the environment. This is called dominion. And this was established by God in Genesis 1 and 2. God determines our place in it. So man is above the environment. First of all, man is unique. Man has a specific place in it. He has dominion over it. Okay? Man is above the environment. So we have to have a proper view of man. What are the 5 attributes of man that we still have to keep in mind? They have to be part of our thinking. We said that man was what? Created in the image of God. We said that man has an eternal spirit. Does the animal kingdom have an eternal spirit? No. Of course, we know man also has life consciousness, which is shared by the animal kingdom. But the spiritual nature of man is not shared by the animal kingdom. All right, and then we said that man has a sin nature. We said that man has a special purpose. Okay? So, make sure you know those 5 attributes. Man was created in God's image. Man is separate and distinct from the animal kingdom. Man has an eternal spirit. Man has a sin nature. And man has a special purpose. Okay, so let's finish with what is a proper view of the environment. What is a proper view of the environment? How will each of our worldviews view the environment? Okay, so let's start with a proper view of the environment, or a proper view of nature. Here it is. Proper view of God, He's the sovereign creator. Proper view of man, He's God's special creation. Proper view of the environment is that it is created and controlled by God. The environment was created and is controlled by God. That's a proper view of the environment. God created it and controls it. Remember, are we deists? What do deists believe? They believe in the God of the Bible, I think. They believe in God, but then they think that God created it, but God's impersonal. And then He stepped back and lets everything run itself. We don't believe that. God created the environment and He controls it. And should we be concerned about it? To a certain point. Because we do have responsibility. That's called stewardship. And that's a Bible principle. But we're not worried about some global catastrophe, and we're not going to be, taking to the streets with our picket signs because our carbon footprint is increasing, and we need to cut back on carbon emissions, and we need to close NIPSCO's coal burning plant in Michigan City, and we need to find alternative energy sources. We're going to run out of our fossil fuels. Do we need to jump on the bandwagon? Because the bandwagon's going to change. It changes all the time. Did you know that when I was in school, public school, in the elementary grades, you know what the fear of the environmentalists was? We were going to have an ice age in the 1970s. Global temperatures were dropping. Okay? It just changes. And sometimes from one extreme to the other. So, what is a proper view of the environment? It's created by God and controlled by God. Bible principles. We need some Bible principles. Okay? First principle. The environment has God-given design and purpose. The environment has God-given design and purpose. What's the ultimate purpose of creation? It's found in Revelation 4:11. What is it? God's glory and pleasure. Right? That's the ultimate purpose, but everything that God does fits in its place, is designed to fit in that place, and is designed to do what God has told it to do. So the ultimate purpose is the glory of God and the honor of God and the pleasure of God. Revelation 4:11, Genesis 14:19 and 22, Exodus 9:29. And then there's numerous references to this in Psalms. Psalms 19, especially 1 through 6. All of Psalms 24. Psalm 47, 2 through 9. Psalms 57, 5. Psalms 104 is another whole psalm. All right, what is another purpose for the environment? The ultimate purpose of everything in creation is God's glory and pleasure. Revelation tells us that, sums it up. Revelation 4:11. But it's also the more practical purpose for the environment is the use of man. Remember, man is God's special creation. It is man that has fellowship with God. And the environment is simply for the use of man. It's for where man will exist. That's why God created it, right? So the ultimate purpose of creation is the glory and pleasure of God. The other purpose of the environment is the use of man. Genesis 1:29. That's where we get the dominion principle. Genesis 9:3, restated after the flood. Genesis 27, verse 28. Deuteronomy 4:40. Okay, so that is the first Bible principle. The environment has God-given design and purpose. Second principle, God gave man dominion over all of the environment. Man was given, man's place in the environment is not determined by evolution, is it? That's why we know man has a special place in the environment. So man was given dominion over it. That includes the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the earth itself. Third principle is that God still has direct control over the environment. We're out of time, so let me just give you the principle 3 and 4. I'll give you the scripture next class period, but the environment has God-given design and purpose. God gave man dominion over the environment. God still has direct control over it. Remember, he's the sovereign creator. And number 4, man has a stewardship responsibility. So that's one word I want you to underline, put an asterisk by it, etc. The key word for a proper view of the environment is the word stewardship. That's how we, in general, need to approach the environment. Stewardship. So that means 2 things: conservation and responsibility. Conservation is a Bible principle. It is. Just because people blow it out of proportion and politicize it doesn't mean it's wrong. All right, we will see you on Thursday.